Do you have a product, service, or event that Creativity Found listeners would like to hear about? For an affordable, pre-agreed fee, I will record for you a short piece of promotional audio that can be added to the beginning of or partway through every episode of Creativity Found for a fixed period of time. Contact Claire at creativityfound.co.uk to book your slot, or use the link in the show notes to book a call with me.
When I was studying, I was designing all these amazing creations. You had like creative license, creative flair of what you wanted to do. But obviously when you're working for a company, it's then very rigid and you have to do what they want. That was the stress that caused my estrogen to go through the roof. The stress of the job. This was the happy accident, basically. And me being ill was actually the birth of my career. You know, we've never all been creative. You come to me with anything that seems crazy or out of the norm, I'm right in there.
Hi, I'm Claire, founder of Creativity Found. For this podcast, I chat with people who have found or refound their creativity as adults. We'll explore their childhood experiences of the arts, discuss how they came to the artistic practices they now love, and consider the barriers they may have experienced between the two. We'll also explore what it is that people value and gain from their newfound artistic pursuits. This time, I'm chatting with Janice Charles. Hi, Janice. How are you?
Hi, Claire. I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Start by telling me what your current creative outlet is, please.
I'm Janice Charles, and I'm the CEO of House of Charles. My brand creates unique, handmade hats and headwear. I'm actually based in Liverpool. I've got a studio in Liverpool. I specialise in bespoke, also have hair as well, for both men and women, bridal. In fact, anything that you can put on your head. And I love a challenge, so, you know, you come to me with anything that seems crazy or out of the norm, I'm right in there.
Brilliant. And I think we're going to find out a bit about how you got there and how that possibly affects the kind of designs that you make. So when you were younger, did creative activities play a part in your life?
As long as I can remember, from 5 years old, I have always been creative, you know. My dad was a carpenter by trade, but my dad could turn his hand to anything also. And my dad used to teach me all the tools, the names of the tools and what they were for and everything. I was his little apprentice, but from early as 5, I was like designing and making me Christmas cards for my mum and dad. I had dolls that I never really played with in the traditional sense. I was always wrapping fabric around them and trying to make clothes for them. Do you know what I mean? So creativity has always been in my blood. I think I was just born with it in my blood, you know. And I was really lucky that I had a dad who supported me, you know. He just made me believe. His mindset was, and that's what I always stand by today. He always used to say to me that you can do anything you set your mind to. And that's what I always tell myself, you know, being brought up with that belief, you know.
Oh, that's lovely. When you were at the stage of leaving school, did you have a plan of what you wanted to do and what was your path after education?
When I was at school, actually, I did modelling. Actually worked in the jewellers to begin with, to be honest, as a start, you know, trainee. Then I got into modelling. And I did some TV extra work. So I've dabbled in all kinds of things, really, do you know what I mean? And I just fell into this industry by accident because actually thought I wanted to be an interior designer through watching TV and seeing Lawrence Llewellyn. And I was like, oh, I want to do that. You know, I'd love to do that. It looks amazing, exciting. So actually seeing a course advertised, I rang up my local college, I spoke to the tutor. And actually, to my surprise, when I actually started the course, it wasn't what I thought it was. Because I was just going in for the carpets and the curtains and all the nice stuff, you know. And this course is called 3-dimensional design. So within that course, we did do interiors, but the interior design was after you'd done the space planning, the surveying, you know, drafting the plans, drafting everything else. And for the first few years, like we dabbled, we did the architect and space planning. And then for the next year, you could do product design. After 2 weeks of joining, I was like, oh no, this is like, it's over my head, it's harder than I thought. To my surprise, we had our first assessment. I was getting merits, and I was like, how did this happen? Do you know what I mean? It's like, what it did do is it taught me to think outside of the box, all the things that we had to do, because it was a brief. You had to problem solve, come up with an original design, draft the plans, and really gave you like real thinking skills of what you wouldn't normally, think of, how to do things in a different way. So that really surprised me. I was getting married on my first assessments, and then from then on, I continued to be in the top 3 in my class, so, and I was actually getting distinctions. So I did that, and I was actually going to go to university. I actually got places, and my tutor, he said to me, it's amazing that you've got these places, he said, and you are that good. He said, my son, he went to university. My son now is like over £20,000 in debt. I would take your portfolio around and go and knock on a few doors. Anyone, he said, will give you a job. He says, I will give you a job. So I was like, that's a bit of a weird information coming from your tutor. Just, you know what I mean? So I did actually take his advice. Funnily enough, not long after I actually seen they were advertising for trainees in my local council for architecture. So I actually took my portfolio, and to my surprise, I was actually taken on. And then I was actually then paid for on-the-job training for my HND through my local council. I became an architect through that. So, the advice that my teacher gave me, although probably quite unorthodox, do you know what I mean? It was the right thing to do. So when I was working for the council, obviously when I was studying, I was designing all these amazing creations. You had like creative license, creative flair with what you wanted to do. But obviously when you're working for a company, it's then very rigid, and you have to do what they want. And unfortunately for me, the projects I was working on in my council was school and office refits, which obviously didn't have the same kind of creativity, that I'd actually went into this industry for. And it became not so exciting as I hoped, unfortunately. And in the end, it did actually make me ill. And I took time out. I took a year out due to ill health.
How did the ill health manifest then?
Unknown to me, the stress causes me to have an hormone imbalance. I had an estrogen dominance, which actually caused me to have uterine fibroids. And I was having periods like for 12, 15 days at a time, constantly in pain. That was the stress that caused my estrogen to go through the roof. The stress of the job, the stress of, unfortunately, having had a male boss who, I didn't like to say the word sexist, but, it was one of them. In fact, my partner even warned me at the time when I started it. He actually said to me, be careful, he said, because I am like a sponge. I learn things really quickly. And he said to me, people become threatened by you because they think you come in and take their job. And I think in the end he was right, because the male boss that I did have, I think he did try to keep me down because he's seen I was picking things up so quickly. So I wasn't really getting, the opportunities that I should have done, and the things that I was getting was very boring and mundane. So it did actually take its toll on me in the end, But having said that, I do believe that things happen for a reason, even though we can't see it at the time.
Janice, did you associate, you think, the physical symptoms of your illness with your experiences at work? Were you recognising stress? Were you putting things together?
You don't automatically think that that's what's causing your illness. It wasn't until I got diagnosed, and then they said it's the stress that causes your estrogen levels to go through the roof. Obviously then it made sense to me, that it was actually that.
Is there treatment for the physical symptoms? Is that how it gets better?
Well, yeah. So I went all around the house before I actually got. First of all, they put me on progesterone. That actually made me worse. Like, I was putting on weight. So I was really had bad headaches. I was feeling sick with it. They were doing my hysterectomy. Obviously, I didn't want one. Do you know what I mean? So I did actually do my research then to try and find out, treatments for it. It took me years. I mean, when I first had it, I had a male doctor who didn't really take me seriously. So that was a battle in itself. I was complaining to him about the pains and the periods, and he had me on all these treatments beforehand. I said the hormone therapy, before he actually agreed to send me to the consultants. That in itself was a battle just to get to the consultants,
Yeah. Let's move on to the more cheerful side of things then. How did you start making hats? Where did that come from?
This is one of the good things that actually came out of me working for my local council, because we actually went to Ladies' Day, a group within the council had day out. I'd never been in the races before. I was looking for a hat for myself and I couldn't actually find anything that I liked. So I bought a plain black hat and I customised it. Everybody was like, oh my God, your hat's amazing. Because of my illness, I was really bored. And when I started feeling a bit better, I'm a very spiritual person. I do believe being creative feeds your soul, so it does actually try and make you feel better. So I already had the sewing machine because of the course I used to do, I actually had like materials left over. And one day I just opened the cupboard. I seen all these materials left over from my course because said we used to have to design it, but we used to have to do scaled models of our design. So I had all the materials, I had like fabric, wire, you name it, I had all that left over in the cupboard. And I don't even know where this came from. I just looked at it and I just thought to myself, I can make a hat out of that. I don't even know where that came from because I've never made a hat in my life. Thought, you know what, I'm going to try. I'm going to have a go with this. So I actually made 2 hats, my experiment hats. Well, they were more like headpieces. So I said to my partner, do you like my hats? And he went, oh, we said, they're amazing. And we said, have they just come today? I went, no, I made them. He went, you made them? I went, yeah. He said, get them on eBay. He said, to test the market. So we did. I put them on eBay. Put them on for 3 days. And within that time, had over 700 odd views on them. And both of them sold for £23.50 each. And I was absolutely made up. A couple of years later, I'd seen a competition advertised called Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? For you to create some unique headwear. So I made a piece. You had to take a photograph and send it. And then I received a phone call saying to me I'd entered the competition, I'd been shortlisted. My design's been shortlisted. I was 2,500 to the final 12. And I could have screamed. I couldn't believe it. Like, I couldn't believe it. So as part of the competition, the piece that he designed was then actually put into John Lewis's in Oxford Street. So it was for Ascot. I've never been to Ascot. So obviously my partner's as excited as I was, and he actually bought us tickets for Ascot that year. We actually went to London, but I actually went to John Lewis's the day before, hoping to see my hat. And I was so disappointed that it wasn't there because it had been sold. So it was like, I wanted to actually see it there. And that was the start of it. And I thought to myself, because it was only ever a hobby, because through my illness, it was something trying to take my mind off being ill and to keep my hand in creativity, because I've always been creative even as a child. So it was a hobby. And this was still in hobby mode, all this was happening. And then that made me realise, well, actually, if I can, out of all those people, I was an amateur, self-chose. And I've managed to beat such stiff competition. And then it was actually sold in John Lewis, it was actually for £220. And that was in 2010. So then I kept on upskilling myself. YouTube, best classroom in the world. Things that I couldn't work out how to do, go and have a look at, YouTube videos. And again, in hobby mode, I seen a photographer advertising for designers. And I messaged her, I sent some photographs of my stuff, which is, oh, they're amazing. So she has a photo shoot with her. Those were actually featured in a magazine. And that's before I'd even launched my business. You know what I mean? So these are all obviously positives, that were giving me the confidence. This was a happy accident, basically. And me being ill was actually the birth of my career. We've never all been creative. And the first, I had an influencer from Liverpool who's seen me on Twitter, and she asked if she could wear my piece. And the very first year, it was in Ladies' Day, and it was actually in the Liverpool Echo. We were there wearing it. So that was my very first year. And then I've been blessed and extremely grateful that since then I've had my designs featured magazines, local press and international press up to now, so that's the amazance about it, it's like.
You have a style. Tell me a bit about your actual creations.
Well, yeah, so once again, obviously, because with me doing the architecture, and this isn't even a conscious decision, everybody recognises my piece because I've got my own style, because they are very architectural, very structural. I've always loved being different and unique. I think the architecture what it did and that course was basically teach me to think outside of the box. So they're completely different from what you would see. I don't actually call myself a milliner. I call myself a hat designer because, my pieces, people say that they're wearable art, They can say they immediately when I tell me background, it all makes sense because they're architectural. I think all those disciplines really are fused into my design style.
Yeah. You've been explaining the success that the brand has had. And this is a question quite often asked of my guests, especially those who take what was a hobby or something that was good for their well-being and then put the business side on top of it. Do you find now that the business element of having a business gets in the way of the creative process and the benefits you get from creating your designs?
I think it does because, unfortunately, I've always been like this, even when I was an architect. I hated the technical side, which sounds really weird. I just wanted to get to the actual design. Nothing's changed, I'm still the same. I love the design. I think I can design with my eyes closed, basically. I love that side. And the business side, the marketing and accounts and all that kind of thing, and trying to drum with customers, obviously I need to do, but that is a bit more difficult for me because it's not natural to me the way design is.
Yeah, I think a lot of people will say exactly the same thing. And how are your stress levels and how is your health now?
So much better. Obviously you'll always be stressed if you've got your own business. That comes with the territory, really, but I think especially working for yourself is stressful, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I think once you work for yourself, I don't think you could ever go back working for somebody else. And, I control what I want to do, the projects I want to take and the customers, I've still got that control. And yeah, things can go wrong and often do. Do you know what I mean? And then you end up having to restart or it's taking you longer and I can be there till 4 o'clock in the morning sometimes. And I've been working throughout the day trying to meet the deadline for the customer. Like, that is stressful, but having that said, when that customer actually comes to pick her up, the reaction on their face, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
Oh, good. Fabulous. Thanks so much, Janice. How can people find you and connect with you and see your designs?
Thank you. You can find me on Instagram, house_of_Charles. You can also find me on Google under House of Charles. I'm based in Liverpool. And anything, even if you think in your head it's not possible, the crazier the better. I'm all for that project. I will design anything that you can put on your head, basically, man or women. Well, within reason, obviously. But yeah, I love a challenge, But I do specialise in bespoke. For you to bring your outfit to me in fabric and I create you a piece just unique to you.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Janice. It's been really lovely to chat with you today.
Oh, you too, Claire. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed this episode. If you did, perhaps you'd like to financially contribute to future episodes at buymeacoffee.com/creativityfound. There's a link in the show notes. If you are listening on a value for value enabled app, such as Fountain, True Fans, or Podcast Guru, feel free to send a few sats my way. And if you have no idea of what I'm talking about, you can find out more by listening to my sister podcast called Podcasting 2.0 in Practice. Are you thinking of starting your own podcast and looking for a little advice from someone who started from scratch and hasn't looked back? That's me, by the way. Then book a podcast startup sanity check with me so we can work together to clarify and simplify the process of starting a show. I have been podcasting with Creativity Found for 4 years. I have won and been shortlisted for prestigious podcast awards, been a guest on other people's shows, and attended many podcast-specific events in the UK and US, where I have made lots of podcasty pals across all genres. For my second show, Podcasting 2.0 in Practice, I have had the privilege of talking to industry experts as together we teach creators how to benefit from and implement the latest Podcasting 2.0 technologies. In this paid 4 hours chat, we can talk through your content idea, how to record, which platforms are worth the money, how to get your show to all the listening apps, what you need to know to future-proof your show, and much more. Please note, I will not tell you how to have a chart-topping show in your first week, nor how to pitch to sponsors. I will, however, act as a mentor whom you can run your ideas and questions past. The decisions you make with the knowledge you gain are all your own. Visit creativityfound.co.uk/podcasting to find out more. And there is, of course, a link in the show notes.